Hi, this is Asmita Neve Pawar from Conversations Mumbai. Hope you all are at home and safe. Currently, we are going through COVID-19 crisis and there is a lot of confusion around. Who is supposed to get tested? How exactly does the testing happens and what happens after the testing and so on. So today we have with us Deepti Dange who was recently tested for coronavirus and she was tested negative. For the first time in life, being negative is a blessing. So let's hear it from Deepti. What exactly did she undergo in this whole process? She will be sharing her experiences with us. So, Deepti, why did you get yourself tested?
So, Smita, I got tested because I was contact suspected. I did not really have any symptoms because I didn't travel myself. Now, let me just give you a little backstory in terms of the audience also understanding what a contact suspect is, because I know there's like a lot of fear with the whole suspect, non-suspect
Hmm.
symptoms. So, what a contact suspect is somebody who's come in contact with a person who's suspected to have contracted the virus, or maybe not, but you're in contact with someone who's traveled. So my husband traveled from Bermuda. He works in Bermuda, and he came back on the 21st of March. Now, if you all remember, 22nd March is when all our airports were shut down for
Correct.
international flights. So where he works, now in Bermuda till, let's say, about mid or the third week of March, they did not really suspect that this was really going to go so big or go so viral. However, as a small island, as a tourist island, they did not even have any mechanism to trace whether any of the tourists coming into the country, as Bermuda itself, have carried the virus in. Neither did they have any options to isolate these people or treat them. So what their employer did was, the safest thing that they thought was to lay off all of these guys, which was a big risk because all of them had to travel far away.
Correct.
But they thought that laying them off, for the time being, and sending them back home where at least they would get their meals or any kind of treatment on time, would be a better choice. Like, we would like to believe that is why they send them back. And how he traveled, and considering he works with a hotel chain, there were, at least at the time that he left for his flight, there were about 50 to 80 people from his hotel as employees who left together. So people in that hotel work from various different countries. He traveled with a lot of his friends, about 6 to 10 friends of his who are all from India, and who belong to different parts of India. So now their
Okay.
flight was booked from Bermuda to Boston, Boston to Doha, and Doha to Mumbai.
Okay.
So now, considering they were changing flights, of course, it was going to be a little unsafe as to where exactly they can contract it. But the hotel was kind enough to provide them sanitizing towelettes and masks and gloves
Hmm.
from the hotel itself. When they left, they were given all of that, and
Okay.
a little briefing in terms of how they should continue to wear their masks all the time. So that's how they all traveled. But sadly, what happened in this process while they traveled is, I mean, I would not say sadly, they did get checked at the airport. But the sad part was that if they got down at Mumbai or the Delhi International Airport, they also got stamped. So this was a
Okay.
home quarantine stamp. This was not a stamp to say that they have contracted the virus or anything like that. But
Okay.
the stamp says home quarantine, and what it puts on your hand is the date of arrival. It also puts a date when your quarantine period ends, which is 14 days from the date that you arrive.
Okay.
Okay. So what happens is, if you are getting off at the Mumbai airport or the Delhi airport, you can only travel so far by road, either within the city or the state. But you cannot take a train or a flight to any other domestic destination in the country with that stamp on your hand.
Okay.
Okay, so that is why I said sadly, because a lot of his friends who came,
Hmm.
including my husband, they are not from Mumbai or Delhi, so they had to travel.
Okay.
Luckily for him, because we are just 4 hours away from Mumbai,
Hmm.
we could get them to Pune by cab. However, a lot of his friends who are, let's say, from Indore, Bhopal, or Nasik, all of these places where they probably couldn't take a cab, they are all stranded at Mumbai or Delhi, or if
Okay.
they've taken a flight to Bangalore or wherever. So if they can't travel somewhere by road, they are stuck in that city. Now their only
Okay.
choice is to book a hotel for 14 days while they are in quarantine and pay up for it, which is at as a lot of these CMs have said, they are at a subsidized rate, but they still had to pay. The
Okay.
other unfortunate part was a lot of other colleagues who are from, let's say, Nepal or Philippines or any other countries. Their airports were locked down much before ours. And a lot of them got stuck in Boston itself because the flights from Boston did not leave for their countries. So
Okay.
in this
Okay.
case, they were sent back to Bermuda. So that was a little unfortunate. But yeah, I think with the Indian guys, we got lucky that they traveled in time and they made it back in time before the 22nd of March. So yeah,
Okay.
that was a little backstory. Luckily enough, till he reached home at the Mumbai airport, also my husband did not have any symptoms. Neither did any of his friends have any symptoms. So they were sent back home for a home quarantine for 14 days. Now, when he came home, for me, we have an additional room at home where we could keep him, which had all the facilities, like it had an additional attached bath and things like that, which he would require. So we had made arrangements. So he didn't have
Okay.
to really practically come out of the room for anything. For his food and his water, I would go personally wearing our little best friend here. So
Okay.
I had to do all of that as a measure
Correct.
and go and serve him food and water, because I have my parents at home who are way over 60, because the
Okay.
bracket initially said anybody who's under 10 and over 60 are the
Correct.
people at the maximum risk. So I have my niece at home who's under 3 years of age, and I have my father at home who's above 70. So, we had that constant pressure to keep
Pressure.
everyone
Correct.
safe at home. So we kind of, put him in that so-called home jail, and he absolutely agreed to stay there because he also knew the repercussions that
Correct.
we will have to go through in case we took any chances of letting him out. So yeah, so that was a tough time, but it's already 14 days, and it's all good for now.
Okay. So when did you decide to get yourself tested, or you were tracked down by the authorities?
So I'll answer the second question first. If we were tracked down by the authorities, not really tracked down, I would say, but I would really like to applaud the work that the police and the PMC, that's Pune Mahanagar Corporation or Municipal Corporation, is doing. I'm sure in other cities also they are doing the exact same. As soon as a person landed in India, there was a list that got generated when these guys were tested at the specific airport. And that
Okay.
list was sent out to the specific cities. Now,
Okay.
every day since the 21st of, say, March until yesterday, so as of now, I have not heard from anybody from BMC today, but until yesterday, which was the 5th of April, okay, I have got a call every single day from somebody in the PMC to check that he's traveled and what's his age and who else is at home and how he's feeling, are there any symptoms. So we didn't get tracked down, but initial 2-3 days there were cops who came home. They wanted a photograph of his with the stamp, and to check that he was in the house, and this person who's traveled is not roaming around anywhere. And
Okay.
also he wanted my live location, so the cop asked me on WhatsApp to send my husband's live location, which had to be at home, a photograph, and that hand with the stamp in the main door of the house. So these were
Okay.
the initial requirements. Then every day they would call us. They also supported us with contact numbers for the ambulance, for hotel, for the hospitals, and any kind of emergency that we would require. This was the PMC guys doing calls every day in and out. So that was your second question. No, we didn't
Yeah.
get tracked, but in a way they have a tracker.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely
So
much
you're
needed.
much needed, and in a country like India where we really don't, so to speak, we don't really trust our systems, right? We just feel
Correct.
that nobody's working. But this process is such an eye opener that when there is a need, or when there is such a grave time on everybody, they have worked 24 by 7, according to me.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
they've tried their best to ensure that they can track everybody, and they're checking on everybody. And I think that gives us a lot of confidence that there's somebody who's going to help us, because the 24th or 25th is when the lockdown started. So our biggest
Correct.
fear was that if he develops symptoms in the next 2-3 days, how do we travel across? So
Correct.
they
Correct.
called us and they said, you just call the cops. or you call the PMC and we'll arrange for an ambulance, which was, I
Mm,
think, a sigh of relief for all of us.
correct.
So to answer your first question now, uh, he did not really develop any symptoms for the first 3 4 days. And we were all relaxing, and every day we would still irritate him, asking, do you have any symptoms, do you want to tell me if something is happening, because we just wanted to be sure.
Correct.
And he would just say, no, I'm feeling fine, and it's just jet lag, because he traveled 32 or 36 hours across. So we were all fine and calm. It was just on I would say the Wednesday. So he came on Saturday, and the following Wednesday or Thursday is when he said that I'm feeling a little itchiness in my throat, and maybe I'm sleeping too much, and the rooms are closed, and the weather has changed. So he said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, fine, let's see how it goes. And if you remember, at that point, the last week of March, it was also raining quite a lot in
Yeah.
Pune, Mumbai, and across. So
Yes.
then we thought that maybe, it's like a sudden weather change. So let's give it some time. On Thursday of that week is when he developed a little bit of fever. And that was an alarm for me personally. If you ask me, we were like a little worried that, should we rush him to the hospital? What should we be doing? And simultaneously, what these boys, all of them who traveled, what they also did is, they formed a group to check on each other as to who had
Okay.
what symptoms, and, who was feeling how. So he used to keep telling me every day that this person is, having a little bit of fever. This person's got a little sore throat. So we were just going back with that information. Now on Thursday, when he developed a little bit of fever, he told, he's so my husband typically, if I tell you, he's somebody because he lives on an island.
Mm-hmm.
He's very okay with like our December weather, but he's from Nagpur. Okay, why am I
Okay.
giving him the stories? He's used to seeing 47 and 48, but that was 10 years ago. So he's
Correct.
not really used to the warm climate. So my biggest worry was when he comes back, because Pune back then had started, with 32, 33 when he came. And my biggest worry was, how is he going to cope up with the summer? But for somebody like him coming to India, and he was in a sweatshirt and like a warm track pant and no fan. So I was wondering what's wrong with this guy. And then
Mm.
he said that, no, I don't want to take any chances, and I want to protect. So one day I let it go. The second day he said, I've got fever and I'm feeling a little cold, and that was like an alarm for me. So I did check his temperature. It was about 100, and I think it was about 100 point something. And that's when I called the PMC guys, and I asked them what should we be doing, and they gave me a doctor's number who's on the panel. So when I spoke to the doctor, I just told him. She asked me a little bit of history, and then she said that, you should not delay it, you go to the hospital. And that's when I told her that, it's just about 100. Do you really want me to rush him, or do you want me to check for a little bit? Do you want me to wait for a little bit? Because we also heard a lot on television that, we don't have a lot of kids in India. So if it
Correct.
looks like a general fever, don't rush, don't exhaust the kids. So we were just in a dilemma, right? So she said, fine, then you wait for 4 hours, take his temperature again. And if you think, there's something to worry, you all can just immediately go to the hospital. So the hospital
Okay.
in Pune is Naidu. It's a government-run hospital for contactable diseases, like communicable diseases like malaria or dengue, and now corona.
Okay.
So I said, fine, let's wait for the whole day and see. So in the afternoon, around 3 o'clock ish, when I took his temperature, it was about 102.9 or 102.5,
Okay.
and he was feeling better than the morning. So, when he was at 100, he was feeling the worst, and at 102, he was feeling fine. So, I just said
Mm.
that, let's not take a chance. Let's just, go to the hospital. But this time around, my husband and my family said, oh, but you know what? What if it comes down, and, let's not rush into it. And everybody said, let's look up, check and monitor the temperature for a couple of days. I wasn't really in favor of that, but obviously out of, family decision, I gave up. And my sister-in-law basically also works in the Asian Cancer Institute in Mumbai. So she happened to call somebody in Delhi, like a doctor who's from AIMS, and another guy who is also on, I think, the panel for these guys who are in isolation, like a doctor. And
Okay.
both of them asked if he has like a headache, or if he has a diarrhea, or if he has very high temperature which is not coming down. If none of these three, then you can wait and watch, like you monitor the temperature every day, and then see how you're looking at fluctuations, or is it constantly rising, or are there any other symptoms developing, which gave me
Okay.
a little less stress, because he didn't have anything besides fever. So then we decided, okay, we'll wait another day. Now by this time we were on Saturday. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Saturday morning he had no fever, it was all gone. Saturday evening he had no fever, all gone. So then we thought, okay, now it looks like it's fine, we don't really need to go to the hospital. And so we let the whole of Saturday go, we let the whole of Sunday go. And considering we are in two different rooms now, it just happened that, I'm sorry the answer is too long, but I just want to give you a little backstory so everyone understands why
Correct.
we pushed
Correct.
the whole thing, right, from Thursday until Sunday. Now on Sunday evening, so while all of this was happening in my family, a lot of his friends were also getting the same symptoms, like a little bit of fever, or like a mild headache. And basically on Saturday is the first time when my husband did mention that he has a mild headache, and that was another alarm for me. So that's when I told him that, look, I think we should not wait. But we still waited. And on Sunday, yeah, I think Sunday also we let go pretty smoothly, and he was fine the whole day. It was just Monday morning at about 7ish when he called me from the other room, and he said that one of his friend who traveled with him on flight from Bermuda to Mumbai, and then from Mumbai in cab with him. So three of these guys and the driver came from Mumbai to Pune. So one
Okay.
of them, um, he said, is admitted in the hospital. Now, in the meanwhile, in this whole week, before my husband even developed fever, a few of his friends said that, wellness, or I think Metropolis had also started doing these tests
Test.
besides
Correct.
hospitals, right? So in between, he had mentioned to me, and I said to him that, if you don't have any symptoms, I think even for Metropolis, we don't really need to exhaust their kits. So only
Correct.
when we have it, we will go ahead and do that. Now, surprisingly enough, or funny enough, I don't know, maybe it was his instinct. And, when he had the fever, he said, let's wait. So his friend had done the Metropolis test on, I think, that Thursday. And they were expecting the test results to come in on Sunday, which was like the last to last Sunday or Saturday. And they
Okay.
didn't really get the tests. And Metropolis called them and said that there's a little delay in the test results. So it will not come on Saturday, it will come on Monday. Now, I think by this time, he already had a little more fever than before or something like that, and they decided to take him to the Naidu hospital. Now, when
Okay.
they tested him on Sunday morning, they tested him. Sunday evening is when they figured that, he's tested positive. This is his friend. This is not my
Friend.
husband still,
Correct.
his
Correct.
friend. So when he tested positive, they admitted him, and this guy, I think, messaged my husband. And considering they had traveled till about Pune together, my husband called me in the morning saying that that guy has been admitted, and his wife is going to go on that Monday. That was the last Monday
Mm.
afternoon, to get herself tested. And
Correct.
I think I should go. I said, yeah, let's just call the ambulance. Now, the funny part was that the ambulance guy we called, he said, yeah, I will come, but I don't know how long will it take. And when he had spoken to the doctor had asked him to come in by 10 in the morning for the test. So we didn't really
Okay.
want to take a chance. Yeah. So cutting the long story short, this is why, considering his friend had tested positive, his wife was going in as a suspected contact because she was with him. We decided that my husband can go. And because I was extremely close as a contact serving him food and water, we decided, and the doctor also it said that get your wife along. That's how I also tested for the COVID-19 test.
Okay. So how does this test happen exactly? Is it a blood test? It is a swab test? What exactly happens in this test?
Okay, so what happens is when you go to the hospital, should I tell you really from the very beginning of the whole process? I think that might,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you have people listening from both Mumbai and Pune, so
Yes.
there's a lot of fear that people have in terms of first of all having the symptoms. Second is a lot of them are shying away because a lot of people have got boycotted for showing any kind of symptoms or traveling, and that happened to me as well when my husband came. But we decided we wanted to go to the hospital, and I think a lot of them also are not coming out and openly saying it because of the lockdown, and they fear that they will not be allowed to go on the road and go to the hospital. But anyways, we decided that we would go. We
So
didn't take
did
the
the
ambulance.
ambulance come?
No, the ambulance did not come. What we did was we decided not to take the ambulance. So we did, have a car, and they said that the hospital said you could take your private vehicle, but obviously my husband doesn't drive in India. I don't drive. And my sister did offer that she'll drive us, to the hospital, but we denied that, considering, she would come back home. And what if any of us were positive and we were trying to, keep minimum contact with the family within the car premises, we could just give it to her. So then we said no. So, Pune is very popular for two-wheelers. So I just told him that, anyways, we are both testing. So even if I have not contracted and I do, we'll have to stay at the hospital.
Correct.
So then that's how we went. We took my bike and we just went to the hospital, and we decided to get ourselves tested. So we did get, stopped on the way a couple of times. And the minute we said Naidu Hospital, nobody wanted to talk to us. And they were like, yeah, please go ahead quickly. So
Okay.
that way, they are helping. They are definitely asking you what purpose are you out for,
Correct.
and that's how they let us go. So the minute we reached the hospital, there were these two constable kind of guys sitting there to check again why we were there. There was a small window behind which there were two of these doctors, or there was a nurse and a doctor sitting, and they wanted to know why exactly we think that we should be tested. So we had to give his friend's name, who was already admitted. So considering they traveled together, they let us in. And still initially they asked me to stop, and they said that once he's done, then you go ahead and apply for the test, which we could have done. But because the doctor had asked me to test, we had to fill in a form for me as well. So once
Okay.
we filled out the forms, we were sent to two different tables, which were, I think, for female and male, candidates. They were separate. For the females, there was a room of two doctors who were asking you what kind of issues do you have, if you have any kind of throat infection, anything like a cough or cold, or you're sneezing because of the weather. So that's what they did with me. They asked me all of these questions, and they told me that we are going to admit you. Now, the minute they said we are going to admit you, I wasn't sure if they've considered that I've already contracted it. So that's when I asked them very clearly. I said, admitting means what? They said, no, for the test, we'll have to admit you. And by the time we get the result, once we know whether it's positive or negative, then we'll decide whether we let you go or we keep you here for another 14 days. So that's
Okay.
how the process was. Once we were through with these two doctors, they filed our papers, and then they took us to another window where this lady, after looking at the papers, gave us a certain medicines. And let me tell you at this point that it was all free. So I was expecting that they're going to charge us for medication, or this basic test, or this whole admitting us for a day at least, but they didn't charge us anything at all. And
Okay.
in the whole frenzy that we just reached, we were not very sure if they were going to give us food, if there was going to be enough water. We just took a bottle of water and a few clothes, thinking that we may have to stay there for 15 days. And I took like some books and phone and all of that, and we just quickly rushed. So they gave us medicines. I was given a dose for 5 days of about five different kinds of medicines that I was supposed to take in the morning and evening, after meals and before meals.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's how we were sent to the next floor, where then we waited for our turn. There were two things that were done, or rather three things that were done. So first thing was a swab test, which was done like deep in my throat. The other one was done in one of my nostrils with the swab, with a cotton swab, which looks almost, so it's like almost this big, and
Okay.
it looks like like a single ended earbud. So that's
Earbud.
what a
Okay.
swab is for people who would not know.
Okay.
And a basic blood test, which happens through your veins in the right or the left hand, wherever they can just do like a small blood test. And
Okay.
that's about it. We thought it
Okay.
was an elaborate process, but that's all that they did. And then they sent us to our respective ladies and gents wards, to just rest and relax. So when I
Okay.
went into the ladies, I think my ward was more generic because I was the contact suspected.
Hmm.
And my husband, because he traveled with his friend,
Hmm.
the board on his room, the gents ward, it said something similar to contact suspicion, where they are guessing that he would still come out positive, something like that. So he was
Okay.
in that room. So the
Okay.
room that was given to me, yeah, in the ladies' ward, there were two rooms opposite each other. The one that was given to me had nobody, absolutely nobody. There were about 8 or 10 beds.
Okay.
Like, I would say approximately about, say, 4 feet or 6 feet away from each other.
Okay.
And the opposite room had two women who were sleeping and one woman who was just lying down. So I was like, okay, it is just like a fun day. There's nobody at all. And when I entered, I had asked them, and they said that there were 19 confirmed patients. and
Okay.
just a few of us coming in for tests. So I thought,
Okay.
great, I have no companions in the room, so I'm much safer. And then I started
Correct.
calling,
Correct.
family, because everybody
Hmm.
knew that we were going to the hospital. So I was calling friends and family and showing them, because I wanted everyone to know that it's very clean. Like, it is a government hospital. You are not going to expect any frills, but it was
Correct.
absolutely clean from the time that we entered till I reached that bed. It was all very clean. They also gave me a separate bottle of water. They offered me a bottle of water.
So, how
Yeah.
much time did it take to get the results?
So we reached the hospital around 10:30. I think our tests were done till about 11:30ish in the morning, and my
Okay.
result came at 11:30 in the night. So I
Okay.
would roughly say about 12 hours. I don't know how soon do they reach the hospital, but by the time it was disclosed to us, it was about, you can say, roughly between 10 and 12 hours.
Okay.
Because the other lady who I knew, she got in maybe an hour before us, and she got her reports at 9:30 in the night, and she was shifted because she tested positive too,
Okay.
and that's how they shifted her to a different room altogether, on a different floor.
Okay. So, you and your husband tested negative.
Yes, we did, luckily enough.
Yeah. So now you both of you are at home, right?
Yeah, so when we left the hospital, um, we were given both the meals. So I joke about it and say that I was destined to eat at a government hospital. Two of my meals I was just destined. But when we got out, we were given a stamp on our hand, just like he was stamped at the airport. We were again stamped, and we were given a letter of instructions to follow, as
Okay.
to not to mix around again with people in the house. And now this time we both had to quarantine ourselves in separate rooms,
Okay.
for 14 days. So that ends on the 13th of April.
Okay. So what exactly is there in this letter that you mentioned about precautions, do's and don'ts?
So it just talks about, so I'll just show you this letter. This one is not from the hospital, this one is from the airport. Okay,
Okay.
and the one from the hospital looks pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah, so it
Okay.
says guidelines for home quarantine. So even
Okay.
that one, because that one is in Marathi, but
Okay.
it says almost the same thing. So this is like a letter from the Ministry of Health and Welfare, which talks about what are the things that the person who's supposed to be quarantined needs to do, and what are the things that the family or the society needs to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I have this poster on my door, like on my main door at home, which the PMC has come and put in, which talks about my husband's details, like his name and the day of his arrival and the end of his quarantine date. So that
Okay.
is something else that was put up.
So when people look at this poster on the door, how do people react? People in the society or maybe people around in the building?
So interestingly enough, I stay in a society, and unluckily for us, this is something that I think people should stop doing, because they're looking at COVID or Corona as an epidemic. But initially, when he came, there was so much of scare or fear amongst people that they kind of treated people as untouchables, which I think emotionally at that point, for somebody who's traveled back home for security, could be very disturbing. So
Correct.
some lady from my society basically saw my husband with a mask and two suitcases,
Hmm.
and that's when maybe she had that fear that he's traveled. But instead of checking with us, what they did was they sent the maids, because we have a common maid.
Hmm.
So she sent the maid to check whether it was really my husband or it was somebody else. And when that was confirmed to her, I think maybe she would have tried to, spread this information personally to a lot of society members. And
Okay.
I got a call within an hour. I got a call from my society secretary saying, has this guy traveled? Like, has your family member traveled from somewhere? Why haven't you informed us about it? And
Hmm.
till then, because it was the very first case, there was no norm set by the society that anybody who's traveling from a different city in India or from abroad has to be reported. Like, I
Correct.
was not told that I need to declare that a family member is traveling, so I wouldn't really know, right? So
Correct.
I told him, I said, we don't have a norm, or you haven't even mentioned that there's something like a declaration letter. And considering it was so stressful, not knowing what would happen to my husband, whether the Mumbai airport will let him go, or are they going to hold them back right there. In that whole thing, yes, I lost a little bit of my temper when this whole thing happened in my society. And I did then I realized that there was no point arguing with people who are anyways not very cooperative. I just wrote a letter to them declaring that, he is only tested at the airport. He is not somebody who has symptoms, because if he had symptoms, they wouldn't let him come back home. And
Correct.
and I think people also need to understand that these people who travel have only family to come back to. Like, you can't expect them to go elsewhere. You just think of your own
Absolutely.
family member who would have traveled, can only to be safe and secure and to get 2 meals comfortably, would only come back to family.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
considering it was the very first thing in my society, they didn't really take it very positively. Then there were a lot of these, messages that I exchanged, because I'm not on my society WhatsApp group. My sister is. So through her, WhatsApp, I kind of, exchanged a lot of messages, and we told them that my sister is a doctor, and we have a less than 3-year-old and person who's over 70. So we are extremely careful, and definitely, everyone's health around in the society is very important to us. So that's when I think everybody calmed down a little bit. And to answer your question about that poster, after I think I sent these messages, 3 days or 2 days later, the poster was put up on our door. We didn't even know. And
Okay.
people from PMC came. They came with these sprays and stuff, and then they sprayed the whole entrance of the house. And yeah, considering there was a lockdown, nobody really had to come to my house. So nobody
Correct.
besides, I think, the sweeper has really seen that poster on my door. And there
Correct.
isn't really fear. But I think lately, when the domestic helpers have come to take their salaries, they would see the letter, and they just ask us what it is. And I think they are more supportive, and they want to understand what exactly it is. So when we tell them that it is
Correct.
only somebody who's traveled, they are fine with that. There isn't really like a lot of fear. But
Correct. So,
initially, yes, I had to give a lot of clarification to this maid, who was made to believe that my husband has corona. And because he was wearing a mask. And
correct.
like, she refused to work on the same day. She said, I'm not going to work at your place, because I've been told that if I work at your place for the next
Hmm.
10 days, I can't work at their place. And I said, you know what, I think I don't want to really put you into trouble. You go and work at whoever's place.
Correct.
And of course, a lot of these people are not educated, so they wouldn't understand. But yes, from an
Absolutely.
educated neighbor, I was really not expecting them to kind of brainwash a maid, and kind of put fear in her mind. So we let go all our domestic helpers. Like, considering this happened very openly, we just let go everyone. Because
Hmm.
the way we work is, tomorrow if I let go of one person and the other person is not fearful, but if she just sneezes in her house, she's going to say, oh,
Correct.
because he came.
Correct.
So we said, okay, fine, let's not just take that chance. Let's just let them go. So fortunately for us, we let them go, and the next day was the lockdown. So anyways, nobody was supposed to go anywhere.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah,
Correct.
it was very tough. I think the toughest part of this whole quarantine was the day one of dealing with my society. But I think now it's all
Absolutely.
it's all okay.
Okay. So
But
the
they're doing
good
fine. Yeah,
good thing is people are recovering and hospitals are
yeah.
sending them back home. That's the good thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Great. So now
But
that
I'm
you are
pretty sure that even if they're sending them back home, I want everyone to remember that there's still another 14-day quarantine after they come back from the hospital.
correct, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's the most important.
And
Where you
now
have to
that
distance yourself even from your family members. So that
family members,
quarantine is not that you can't step out of the house. It is more important that if you were tested positive and you were sent back home, you're definitely in a more stricter, sort of an environment at home, where you're not really contacting or being in the same space as any of your other family members, so that there are no chances of, anything absolutely going wrong. But
correct.
even for us, when we tested negative, they still told us to, try and stay away from family as far as possible.
Any one message that you would like to give out to the society, apart from whatever you have mentioned so far?
Sure. I think some things that I would definitely, from my experience, keep in mind is, one, first of all, don't think कि ये मुझे होगा ही नहीं. Because
Correct.
I think a lot of people think that, I am not over 60 and I'm not under 10, so it's never going to happen. But, of late, what I also shared on Facebook was, the health ministry's update that approximately 73% of the population who's contracted, the disease in India is between 21 and 59. So I think a
Okay.
lot of us come in that population, and we should not overlook the fact that it can happen to us. We should
Correct.
not think of any cough and cold or fever, or any of these symptoms to be very generic, and start self-medicating ourselves, because we may have contracted this way before we stopped going out of the house. And for different people, it's going to have different timelines when it develops. So we've also heard that for some people the signs start showing after 14 days of quarantine also, which is scary, because after 14 days you might think, oh, now my quarantine is over, I can do whatever I want.
Correct.
But for
Correct.
some people it's also developed on the 16th day or the 20th day. So you have to watch out for what is happening. The other thing that I want to say is, if you know of somebody who's probably traveled, and this is from experience, if somebody who's traveled, or somebody who may have had the corona contact, please don't treat them inhumanly. I think we also need to support them and learn from the experiences of these people, rather than saying that, oh my god, there's somebody who's had the virus contact, so let's just kind of boycott them. I think
Correct.
that's important.
Correct.
Also, the biggest thing that I can say is just stay at home. So this is not your time to be a superhero and just go out of the house because you're getting bored. And today I went for a cigarette, tomorrow I've gone for potatoes, third day I've gone for onions. I mean, just make a list of whatever you need. Just do it once a week, and
Correct.
everyone in the family is going to get bored. So I think every member who can go out needs to have a chance. And please wash everything that you buy from outside. And I think there's a lot that has already been said about wear a mask and cover your mouth, and as soon as you come back, wash the clothes and wash your hair, because apparently the virus can stay in your hair longer than even on your clothes. So just wash. A lot of people think that, oh my god, who's going to do all of that? But I think if it's important and you don't want to go through these challenges, it's better that you take a shower or you wash your hair as soon as you come.
Correct. Absolutely true. Thank you, Deepti, so much for sharing
Thank
this
you so much,
information.
Asmita. It's my
And
pleasure.
we were absolutely not aware that there is so much in depth that even the authorities and the government are doing. Like you mentioned, you gave us the backstory of it, and I'm glad that our government is doing so much for us. I just hope that we get through this entire crisis very soon. So I would urge all the viewers to stay at home, stay aware and stay alert of what your body is signaling you, and do not do any self treatments. Just ask for help, and the authorities are there to help us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.